This episode of Code Story is sponsored by Ladder. Ladder was founded by LeBron James and Arnold Schwarzenegger to change the way supplements are made. They worked with the top scientists to formulate a line of clean performance products. Unlike other supplements, every batch is tested by a third party to verify the highest standards for quality and safety. We all know what a tremendous athlete LeBron is, and Arnold, no explanation needed. If they back it, you know it's got to be good. Ladder's goal is to help you unlock your best in any situation. Right now, that means access to special offers and expert advice from their community. Use code BETTEREVERYDAY, all one word, all caps, for 30% off everything site-wide at ladder.sport. That's BETTEREVERYDAY, all caps, all one word, for 30% off at ladder.sport.
A designer to help out on kind of what the website looks like and what the app looks like, or if it's somebody to actually write the code of the applications and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, if they don't have a love for podcasting, if they don't love to listen to podcasts and kind of things like that, that's a really steep hill to climb into to build something that people are going to love. I think you need to love it as well. So really early on, when you're a really small team, a really small enterprise, I think that passion for the thing that you're trying to do, I think is really hugely important. My name is Mubashar Iqbal. I'm the founder of Podhunt.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries who share in the critical moments of what it takes to change an industry and build and lead a team that has your back. I'm your host, Noah Laupart, and today how Mubashar Iqbal brought the power of Product Hunt into the discovery of podcasts on a train ride home. All this and more on Code Story. Mubashar Iqbal, aka Mubs, has always been a maker. Having built 85 side projects, he is no stranger to launching new products. Being inspired by his love for Product Hunt, he got the idea to create something with the same mechanics, but for podcasts. On a train ride home, he started to build Podhunt, a place for podcast lovers to submit and vote on new episodes, solving discovery around episodes over entire podcast shows.
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, it was kind of inspired by some other things that exist out there. So in terms of trying to figure out what was in the MVP, it ended up being pretty simple, right? Like it was, somebody needs to be able to sign up, somebody needs to be able to submit an episode, somebody needs to be able to upvote the episode, and then you need to be able to see that list of episodes. So that, kind of planning it was kind of fairly straightforward because I was just trying to follow a roadmap that kind of existed kind of out there already. So it didn't require a lot of planning, a lot of thought, really. It was just kind of, I was in New York City and I was meeting with some friends and things. And so on the train ride home, I started to work on Podhunt itself. So it took me about 2 weeks to get like a functioning MVP out there for people to kind of be able to sign up and submit episodes as well.
Okay, yeah, 2 weeks, that's pretty quick. So, so you built Podhunt on a train. That's awesome.
That's where I started it. Yeah, I've probably got a pretty long way. It's a 2.5 hour train ride from New York City up to upstate New York where I live. So I got quite a lot accomplished. Sure.
No, that's fantastic. What is it built in? What's the stack?
I'm a big fan of Laravel PHP, and actually it's funny because I was in New York City to be at Paracon conference, and that's why I was friends there as well. So it's built in Laravel PHP. It's using some Vue as well in the front end to be able to do the upvoting and stuff like that with just Ajax stuff, and then it's hosted on DigitalOcean droplets as well.
Okay, gotcha. Very cool. Side question. So Laravel, do you happen to know Tanner Hearn or David Hemphill?
I mean, I know of them. I think I may have run into one or two of them at the conference as well, but outside of that, not really, no.
Gotcha, cool. Well, Tanner is a huge Laravel supporter. I think David was too. I think David's moved on and is working on some other stuff, but Tanner is actually episode 2 of Code Story. We used to do my agency used to do some work for MusicBed where he's at, and they used Laravel pretty heavy until they moved to React. So yeah, interesting. Small world.
Yes.
So what decisions kind of did you have to make in that 2-week stint, and building the MVP? What trade-offs did you have to make early on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest choice that or the biggest decision I made was to how to handle authentication, really. So I was trying to figure out, like, do people just like log in with do they make an account with their email address and just enter a password, and then they kind of become active kind of on the site? You know, they don't have to go and verify email addresses and all that kind of fun stuff. And then the sort of other option was just to use some kind of social media login instead. So use Twitter OAuth instead. And so I decided to use the Twitter OAuth as the sort of way to kind of have people authenticate who they are. And the main reason I decided on that was because I was trying to figure out, it was kind of part of the MVP, but it kind of came, I think, 2 weeks after the MVP. It came like a week after the MVP itself. But I wanted to be able to tag like who was on each of these episodes, right? Like, just like I'm being interviewed now, I want to be able to tag the fact that I was in this interview.
Right.
And so having Twitter be kind of like the way that you kind of say who you are on the website and stuff kind of made it a lot easier than to say, oh, if you want to tag somebody as a host of an episode or a guest on an episode, just include their Twitter handle as well. And I just felt like, had I used email address to kind of be the way that you logged into the website, now just kind of expecting people to also be able to tag Twitter handles and stuff would just, I mean, obviously it still would have worked, but I think it just made it more cohesive that the like identity throughout the entire experience now is based on who you are on Twitter instead.
Right. I've seen that come through whenever you put Twitter in as a guest or a host, and it's tagged as the tweet goes out, or it's in the preview, it shows up with their picture and stuff. And that's a really nice integration.
And I think that made life a little bit easier and just easier to understand as well, because I've tried to do things like that in the past. And if you're not requiring people to log in with their Twitter accounts, at some point you have to make them link the account as well somehow. And now you've got one email address that you use to sign up and one email address that you use on Twitter. And it just really gets confusing.
Right. Sure. So it's pretty much, it's backboned on Twitter right now, which makes sense, keeps it seamless, keeps it consistent. Do you foresee using any other backbones or any other login mechanisms in the future? You kind of feel comfortable with Twitter moving forward?
I feel as comfortable as you can with Twitter. They tend to have waves of where they really seem pretty friendly with people using their APIs and things. And then they go through waves where it's like, well, we don't want anybody to use our information, and we want to control everything and the experience and everything like that. So I imagine at some point there will have to be some alternative way to be able to log in and sign up and stuff like that. But I think for the foreseeable future, hopefully things will be stable enough that I can continue the way things are.
Very good. So tell me about how the product has progressed and matured since that 2-week stint, starting with the train ride.
I mean, it was pretty rough at the end of those, sort of that week or two. I mean, it all kind of worked and it all kind of looked okay. It wasn't fantastic. And it really was the bare minimum features, just like the things that I outlined in terms of, people could sign up, people could submit episodes, people could upload episodes. And that was basically the core of what I had launched kind of at that point. But I kind of like that approach of just keeping things lean and light and stuff, just building the absolute things that you have to build, and then to put it in the hands of the users after that. And then just try and talk to a few of them and see kind of what pain they're having, what features are missing and kind of things like that. So since the launch, I think the main things that we've done or the main thing I've done, because I'm the only one who works on this thing, is just improve the experience of kind of just understanding how you submit things, because you need to collect a lot of information kind of through who's on the episode, what's the title you want to use when you want to share it, and what's the podcast that it's actually on, the one that you're actually submitting. And so we kind of broke that up into a few steps and just tried to make that a little bit easier and kind of simpler to understand what's happening. We added the ability to add a little preview to each episode as well when you upload it, because I mean that was one of the things a lot of people asked about, was like, well, you've just submitted a 45-minute long episode.
Sure.
How does somebody know, other than reading the little excerpt about what that little blurb of what that actual episode is about? How do you know if it's something that will be interesting? And so what we've done is people can now upload a 30-second clip of that podcast, so you can play it right in line. Hopefully a sort of understanding of what the episode is about and what the sound quality is like even as well, just as another indication of if it's something that you might want to hear.
Right. That's a great idea. Just a quick clip of, here's a juicy tidbit.
Yep, exactly.
This episode is sponsored by Vanta.
You're a startup founder. Finding product market fit is probably your number one priority. But to land bigger customers, you also need security compliance. And obtaining your SOC 2 or ISO 27001 certification can open those big doors. But they take time and energy, pulling you away from building and shipping. And that's where Vanta comes in. Vanta is the all-in-one compliance solution helping startups like yours get audit ready and build a strong security foundation quickly and painlessly. How, you ask? Vanta automates the manual security tasks that slow you down, helping you streamline your audit. And the platform connects you with trusted VCSOs to build your program, auditors to get you through audits quickly, and a marketplace for essentials like pen testing. Join over 8,000 companies, including many Y Combinator and Techstars startups who trust Vanta. Simplify compliance and get $1,000 off at vanta.com/codestory. That's vanta.com/codestory.
Payoff.com is a paying sponsor of the Code Story podcast. You've tried balance transfers and budgeting, but high interest rates and unrelenting bill cycles make it almost impossible to get out of credit card debt on your own. Instead of another new savings technique, you need a clear path out of debt, and that's what a payoff loan can do. A payoff loan is a personal loan backed by member-centric credit unions designed to help you pay off your credit cards with rates as low as 5.99% APR and loan amounts up to $35,000 with no hidden fees and personal customer service support from Payoff to help you reach your financial goals. Some of the benefits of a payoff loan may also include potential credit score boost, one monthly payment, and savings from lower interest rates. Go to payoff.com/codestory to learn more. Checking loan rates won't affect your credit score. Try something new. Pay off your credit card debt with Payoff. NMLS ID 1396805. Not all applicants may qualify. Loans only available within the United States. Loan is not available in all states. Payoff works with lending partners who originate the loans. Additional terms, conditions, and eligibility requirements may apply. More information is available at payoff.com/codestory. This episode is sponsored by SaveTheChildren.org. Save the Children believes every child deserves a future. In the United States and around the world, they work every day to give children a healthy start in life, the opportunity to learn, and protection from harm. They deliver lasting results for millions of children, including those hardest to reach, and do whatever it takes for children, every day. Right now, the coronavirus is the biggest global health crisis of our lifetime. It threatens children in every way. COVID-19 has already left many children without caregivers, out of school, and exposed to violence and exploitation. With your support, SaveTheChildren.org can help children in unsafe households and help support distance learning in the face of school closures. Here are some of the ways your support can make a difference. For just $5, you can buy a baby's first book, providing comfort and inspiring a lifelong love of learning. For $10, you can nourish an out-of-school child in need for one-day breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For $35, you can provide educational toys and activities to engage eager out-of-school learners. And for $50, you can deliver essentials that keep kids learning while out of school, like books, activities, and supplies. Go to SaveTheChildren.org/SaveKids today or www.savethechildren.org/SaveKids to make a difference. How are you building your roadmap right now? Like, in roadmap, maybe you're a one-man team right now, right? So roadmap is a heavy word, but in any sense of the word as you use it, Mubs, how are you building your roadmap?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit easier with kind of a one-man team because everything's in my head.
Sure.
So it's a little bit, I'm not having to share it with people and kind of try and make sure everybody's on the same path and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But in terms of what the roadmap is, really the sort of essence of the site is actually a two-headed marketplace, and that's a bit that kind of took me a little bit of time to understand. Because you've got people who want to submit their episodes, who want to share their episodes so that more people would listen to those episodes. And then you've got the people who want to hear new episodes, and so they come to the website just to find new stuff. And so you've got the essence of a two-headed marketplace. So I find myself kind of stuck in the middle of that. And so I try not to veer too much to one side or the other. And I'm trying to keep that happy medium of, yes, I need people to submit things and to submit new episodes that they found And I need people to come who are looking to hear all of those things. So I'm trying to focus my roadmap of that core experience that kind of serves those two sides of the market. I mean, I think my biggest thing on the roadmap in terms of probably over the next 6 months or so at least is probably, right now we're a pure web experience. And so I think over the space of the next 6 months or so, we probably will end up having some kind of app involved as well. People have said that most of the listening of podcasts happens within some kind of app environment, whether it's on iOS or Android, through things like Apple Podcasts and Google Play, and Spotify now as well is becoming a large player in the space as well. But having an app that people can use on their phones as well to kind of see what's on PodHunt and then maybe listen to the episodes within the application itself is probably something that will happen.
That's super cool. I would definitely be a user of that. So you have a classic kind of marketplace challenge where you've got kind of chicken and the egg. Do you get the podcasters? Do you get the listeners? And you're constantly balancing that. And the middle point is a win for both, but you're attracting them differently. How do you go about that?
Yeah, it's actually funny because right now, because as you said, we're really early in the cycle. We're about 10 weeks old, I think it is. It's actually funny. I mean, because it is a two-headed marketplace. Fortunately for me in this particular situation, a lot of people that listen to podcasts, a lot of people who host podcasts actually listen to a bunch of other ones as well.
Sure.
So even though it is a two-headed marketplace, there's a big overlap between the two kind of sides of the marketplace at the very core of it, at least. As we expand and grow, that I think that will start to shift just because, just that old rule that, 20% of the people are going to, well, not even 20%, probably 10% of people are going to be the ones who create the content, and 90% will be the ones that consume it. Now, I mean, obviously, my way of attracting a sort of audience is to be on podcasts like this as well, because I'm trying to spread the word. So
sure,
being on these podcasts, one is, obviously allowing me to talk to hosts like yourself as well and kind of share what PodHunt is and kind of everything else. And then obviously when people hear this episode, they'll find out what PodHunt is as well. And from a listening standpoint, hopefully we'll tap into your audience as well.
Right. That makes sense. That's a good strategy. This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. Between juggling client meetings, managing your website, and keeping up with everyday tasks, who has the time to stress out about website security? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of, so you can focus on what you do best. Kinsta provides managed hosting for WordPress, offering lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Kinsta provides enterprise-grade security, being one of the few hosting providers for WordPress with SOC 2 and other certifications, guaranteeing the highest level of security for your website. Thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition for you from other hosting providers. Customers have reported 200% faster load times post-migration to their platform. What I find cool about Kinsta is their fast and reliable customer service and premium features that are included at no extra cost. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. That's KINSTA.com. My next question is one of my favorites, but it's going to be future structured for you. So you're a one-man team right now. As PodHunt continues to grow, you might need additional hands, right? You might need additional minds and you might need to grow your team. What will you be looking for when you start to add additional resources to your team?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about this a lot, and I've kind of worked at startups in the past as well. So I've kind of been through this cycle of, having to be, from a 2 or 3 person team. I think, I was employee number 6 or 7, and we went to like 200 employees, kind of at one point. So I've been through this cycle of growth. Now, I don't think PodHunt will ever be that big. I think for me, just like the passion for the industry, I think is really important. So really, obviously I'm going to want people who know what they're doing in terms of that specific skill that I'm looking for, whether it's a designer to help out on kind of what the website looks like and what the app looks like, or if it's somebody to actually write the code of the applications and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, if they don't have a love for podcasting, if they don't love to listen to podcasts and kind of things like that, that's a really steep hill to climb into to build something that people are going to love, I think you need to love it as well. So really early on, when you're a really small team, a really small enterprise, I think that passion for the thing that you're trying to do, I think is really hugely important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you want someone that's passionate for the industry, that you're building this for. And I'd even extend that question a little further, Mub, for you. So you've built how many side projects now?
I think I just pushed out number 85.
85 side projects, right? So there are distinct qualities about you, Mub, that allows you to push out so many great projects, right? And great work all the time. If you were to, bullet point that list and say, I also need the people on my team to think the way that I do, what would those things be?
I think the biggest thing is especially, again, once you're in a really small organization, once you're working with one or two people, it's basically this isn't somebody else's responsibility. This is my responsibility, right? So it doesn't matter what the task is. It doesn't matter. I've been a one-person sort of team here, so I've had to do the design, the development, think about the UI, the UX. I've had to think about SEO. I've had to think about sales and marketing and things like that. So, so the first person that I bring on is not going to be somebody that just handles one of those things. It's going to be somebody who can kind of, have an expertise in one of those things, but they also going to need to do all those other things as well. Right. Because, and even if it's not actually do all those other things, at least have an understanding and an appreciation for all of those things as well. Because, I can't, just not just me, but just kind of anybody else who's kind of working on in such close quarters on these things, you're going to have your hands in kind of everything as well.
Right. Makes sense. So let's talk a little bit about scale. So how are you building this right now to make sure it scales efficiently as Pod Hunt continues to blow up?
I mean, there's just some things that over the years you just learn that these things are really bad for scaling.
Sure.
But typically at this point, I try not to worry too much about that kind of stuff. Now, if something happened tomorrow and somebody told me I was going to get 1 million people come to the website, I'd probably find a way overnight to make sure I could handle that particular load.
Sure.
But the chances of that happening are pretty slim, right? I tend to stay away from that the over-optimization thing that a lot of people get stung with. They spend months building something that can scale to tens of millions of visits, and they never, ever receive tens of millions of visits. So yes, I think other than as I said, I've tried to think about and frankly, using Laravel is kind of at its core allows you to kind of split things up a little bit. Like if I needed to pull the DB out and put it on its own server, easy to do. If I needed to pull all the images out and serve them from a CDN, I could do that pretty easily as well. So all of the bits are there in place that allow me to scale as and when I think it will be important to scale. But it's also keeping things easy and simple to update and simple to work on as you're trying to work out, are you building the right thing that the market is actually looking for, so that you can iterate really fast without worrying too much about scale at the beginning of everything. Right.
So there's sort of just-in-time development, as you need it, build it that way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the previous side projects that I had built was a really, really simple 2 kind of screen site. It was called Will Robots Take My Job.com was the website. And it was, like I said, it was a really simple website, essentially 2 screens that you could have a whole bunch of information on. Mm-hmm. People typed in the job that they had, and it gave them a percentage likelihood that job would be automated away through AI. But in the first week that was live, it got 4 million page views.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. But when I built the site, we didn't think we were going to get that much. We didn't think we were going to get that much interest in the site. But we had built it in a way that we didn't really worry about scale. But we knew that there was a potential that something could get it could get linked from somewhere, and might get a few thousand people come to it instead. Mm-hmm. But as with most things, unless you're talking about hundreds of millions of visits, hundreds of millions of active accounts and things like that, most problems you can solve by throwing more hardware at it.
Right.
And so that was the first thing we did. We went from the smallest size DigitalOcean droplet that cost $5 a month. That first night after we launched, I went from a $5 to a $20 droplet instead. And that was all that it took. After that, the website ran smoothly, even with the millions of requests that we had to serve after that.
Nice. A little bit of hardware scaling there. Nice.
Yes.
Very cool.
This message is brought to you by Atomic Child. Do you love the outdoors? Do you wish you had a way to keep it with you throughout your week? Atomic Child is an artist-run brand that is inspired by nature. They capture the great outdoors through unique designs, and their designs can be found on stickers, blankets, water bottles, mugs, pins, patches, and more at atomicchild.com. Need nature-based art in your life? Look no further. Atomic Child has the gear for you because they bring nature to you. Me personally, I'm eyeing a new coffee mug or hat with a sweet Colorado design on it. You can bet I'll be ordering some sweet nature-based clothing and accessories right here from Atomic Child. Check out their store and art prints at atomicchild.com. That's atomicchild.com. This message is brought to you by RIMS, the Risk Management Society. RIMS is a global organization dedicated to the profession of risk management. For nearly 60 years, RIMS has delivered the latest strategies and resources that allow risk professionals to grow, innovate, and succeed in any business. RIMS works with industry leaders to produce content and online training that business professionals turn to. Topics include business continuity, cyber risk management techniques, the fundamentals of insurance, and more. There is also a private, members-only site where people can discuss sensitive issues and get honest answers. Members have been leaning on each other as we all navigate the global pandemic. If you're concerned about the safety of your employees and the sustainability of your organization, you need the resources and connections RIMS provides. Learn more at go.rims.org/codestory. You can save 25% off a year-long membership. Again, that's go.rims.org/codestory.
You've done a ton of side projects, right? Mistakes you're always up to your elbows in issues with startups and projects and things like that. So tell me about a mistake you made and how you responded to it.
Yeah, it's been so, I don't know really in this particular one if I've really made too many mistakes, just because it hasn't been long enough to make a lot of mistakes yet. I think in many ways, I mean, the biggest mistake that I made with this is that it took me so long to actually work on it. Because, like I said, it was an idea that kind of started probably about 2 years back when Product Hunt said that they were going to shut down the hair stuff. And people had asked me since then, Justin Jackson, actually, who runs Transistor FM, the podcast hosting service, is the one who's been the main driver. And ever since they shut down, he's been trying to make somebody make this.
Sure.
And so I've been talking to him on and off, sort of over the years. And for some reason, I mean, I think with a lot of side projects, especially, you kind of have to feel like it's the right thing for you to build at the right time. And so for me, at least, Pod Hunt felt like now was the right time to kind of work on it, just because of the sort of time that it would take to build it and the time it would take to maintain it after you've launched it and sort of all that kind of stuff. And so it never felt like it was the right time until now. But, looking back, obviously seeing how it's been received and, people are really, excited about it and stuff. But, I kind of wonder, should I have built it then when I actually started it?
Right. Sure. What was the delay for that? So you were working on other projects or? Yeah,
I mean, I was a little bit concerned about the whole, it just works if you have enough of a community, right? Like if there's enough people at the beginning who are submitting stuff, people are uploading stuff. If you come to a site like this and there's one podcast episode, nobody's submitting stuff and nobody's uploading stuff, it just kind of feels like it's a really poor place to be and a poor place to find new episodes of things like that. So I think that was my main concern, was that I didn't think I had, at the time at least, I didn't think I had the right audience and the right people I could reach out to say, hey, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to launch this thing. Is it something that you could commit to, once a week, submitting an episode or however often it is? So I think that was my main concern. It was not I think write the code for something like this. I think it still is pretty straightforward, and it was pretty straightforward as well. But have that early user base who would be active on it, and so that when other people saw it, they would see that vibrancy. So I was more concerned about the time commitment after I launched it, I think.
That makes a ton of sense. So what does the future look like for Pod Hunt?
I think the future's pretty bright. I mean, the main thing that really excites me is that when I first launched Pod Hunt, I was submitting a lot of the episodes, right? Like every day I would find things that 2 or 3 episodes a day I was submitting just to make sure that there was some activity on the site and stuff like that. Now, 10 weeks in now, I typically only submit stuff on the weekends now because the weekends are still pretty light in terms of activity. But in the week now, I think yesterday we had 8 episodes yesterday. I think we have about 6 already submitted today as well. And I didn't submit any of those.
Mistake that you made during this process.
Yeah, so that whole community feeding on itself, I think, is starting to happen. And so we're having a lot of activity that is just other people who find the service, like the service, and are becoming active users of it.
Very cool. I love it. So tell me what you're most proud of about Pod Hunt.
I think it's just the fact that people are finding it and finding value in it. I think the thing that really pushed me to actually start Pod Hunt eventually was that I was looking for new podcasts as well, and finding that most of the lists that are out there, most of the leaderboards that are out there have the same 100 people on there, have the same 200 people on there. You know, maybe number 1 changes to number 2 and number 2 changes to number 3, but kind of essentially it's the same celebrities that you see everywhere else. It's the same big names from TV and those kind of other places. But when you come to Pod Hunt, you know, you see one of those people each day, but chances are it's somebody that you've never heard of, and it's somebody who's recording some awesome stuff, and you're able to hear it. So the fact that Pod Hunt is able to showcase and highlight such a diverse group of people working in the industry, I think is really awesome.
For sure. Nicely done there. Name an architect, a CTO, or a tech person you look up to and tell me why.
Yeah, I know it's going to sound a little bit strange, but so I've been a friend of Ben Tossell for a long time, and he's not a CTO because he doesn't know how to write code. But that hasn't stopped him from building a really awesome company in the tech space. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes back a little bit to what we talked about earlier in terms of this can-do attitude that people have to have, especially if you're in the startup space as well. So what a lot of people see as an obstacle that they can't overcome. I don't know how to write code, so I'm not going to, so a lot of people just try and learn how to write code. And his attitude was, well, look, there's enough out there now on the internet. There's enough things out there. There's enough tools out there that if you want to build something, you can find a way to build it without having to write code. And then so he was able to do that, and then obviously he built like a whole movement around that as well. And so I think that's really awesome, the fact that you kind of see an obstacle, and rather than stopping and saying I can't overcome this obstacle, or just trying to take the traditional way around that, which would be I'm going to learn how to code, he said no, I'm going to find my own way around this obstacle instead.
Right, and great problem solver. For those that don't know Ben Tossell, give kind of a brief overview of what he started.
Yeah, so Ben Tossell, and there's been a couple of other folks who are kind of active in this space, but I think he's probably at the forefront of the no-code movement. So he runs a company called MakerPad, and I believe it's makerpad.co, I think it is, or he might have the .com, I don't remember. But I think it's makerpad.co, and it's a website that anybody can visit, and he lists a whole bunch of tutorials and kind of things like that kind of walk people through how to make a bunch of different kind of applications without having to write any code. So if you've got a problem that you want to solve that normally you would have to go hire somebody for, but it's probably something that exists already, but you just want to serve a different market or a different industry, you can find on MakerPad all of the tools and instructions that you need to be able to build that thing without having to write any code. So it really opens up the world of startups to just about anybody now. So if you have an idea, or you want to replicate an idea of an existing application, but in a new industry, in a new country, or anything like that, chances are you can figure out how to do it through MakerPad.
Very cool. That sounds like an awesome tool. If you could go back to the beginning when Product Hunt pulled podcasts, or the beginning of the train ride, what would you do differently?
Yeah, I think seeing other people's reaction to it. I think the only thing I might do is just not do it alone, perhaps. Having some other folks involved kind of earlier, I think may have helped to accelerate things even more than they are now, I think. And then, like I said, other than that, just starting a lot sort of earlier as well. So if I'd had the sort of forethought to be able to go back to when Product Hunt took off the category and just built something immediately at that point, I think, it may have actually been easier to capture the sort of active user base that had existed on Product Hunt initially. And it may have been easier to kind of siphon them over instead.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Well, Mubs, you've been active in the startup space. You've built 85 side project. You've got a great product with Pod Hunt. If you were sitting next to someone on a plane and they were just getting started, their first side project or their first startup, what advice would you give them?
I think the biggest advice, and the thing I try and follow still, is, especially when you're starting, just make as little as you can, right? Like, don't have this have the big idea about the thing that you want to build and all the features that you want it to have, but really start small in terms of launch with as little as you can. Build the fewest of those features that you can, that you can launch and actually have in the hands of the people that you want to use your application. And then let them tell you which features they actually want out of that big long list of things that you have. So just aim big but start small, I guess, is the best advice, I think.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Mubs, thanks for being on Code Story today. Thank you for telling your story and the creation story of Pod Hunt.
Absolutely. It's been fantastic to be here.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Season 2 episodes are co-produced and edited by Bradley Denham. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. Support the show on patreon.com/codestory for just $5 to $10 a month. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening. A quick note from our friends at DrawSQL. As a developer, have you ever wanted to visualize your database schema? DrawSQL helps you create pretty database diagrams to document your database and share it within your dev team. In fact, they just launched a gallery that was featured on Product Time and ranked number 3 on Hacker News. So definitely check it out to see some database schema references of popular open source packages. Get a 20% lifetime discount on any DrawSQL plans by using Code Story, all caps, all one word, at checkout, or just email hello@drawsql.app.